There's a saying that I've been told, that there's at least one moment in every person's life where something so dramatic and drastic happens that you can never ever become the same person you were before the event occurred. This can happen instantly or over the span of a few days, weeks, or even months. No one really expects something that dramatic to happen to them, and when it does happen, initially you don't even know that it has occurred. Now this one event can be anything really, finding out a secret, learning something new, or witnessing something amazing. But it doesn't just have to be an event. It can be something that you find an interest and it takes over everything in your life. It can be an album, a movie, a book, or even a video game. Hey, what is up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about one particular game that I previously mentioned on this channel before. This game is my most favorite video game of all time, but this is not just a game. This is a work of art. This is a cinematic masterpiece that can rival some of Hollywood's best movies. Not only changed my view of the world, but also changed me as a person. This game redefined my interests and got me through one of the most radical times of my life. It was so influential that I even wanted its impact to be on me permanently as my first tattoo. And it just so happens to be that game's 7th anniversary on the day that I upload this video. I am Landon Mendoza, and this is how The Last of Us changed my life forever. Warning, there will be spoilers from The Last of Us from this point on in the video. If you have not played it or don't want anything spoiled for you, do not continue on. So first, I need you to think back all the way to the year 2013. This was the year that Katy Perry roared, the Harlem Shake took the internet by storm, and more specifically for gamers, it was the beginning of a new console generation. Now, what were you doing back then? For me, this story starts in June of 2013. I was just about done with my sophomore year of high school. I just celebrated my 16th birthday and was ready to be released for summer vacation and to take on the world. Life was good. Now, at this point in my life, I did not consider myself a real gamer. I just liked to play video games, more specifically on my PlayStation 3. I loved my Call of Duties and my Assassin's Creeds. I also loved to play a small video game franchise that some of y'all may be familiar with. Up until that summer 2013, the Uncharted trilogy, well at the time it was a trilogy, was my favorite group of games that I could possibly have played. Its gameplay, the graphics, its set pieces, and its storylines were, to me, the best that the PlayStation had to offer. I mean, there's a reason why Nathan Drake is the PlayStation 3's mascot, and why he's tattooed on my arm, but that's a different story for a different video. Now, at the time, I vaguely knew what NaughtyDog was, and I knew their role in the Uncharted and Jak and Daxter series, but I didn't really keep up with anything that they were doing or what kind of game they would be releasing next. I didn't know that the world of video games was a big event, that there were these yearly conventions and conferences for people who make and play games. I was so naive to the world of video games because I didn't know that any of this was going on. But in all honesty, at this time, with me being in high school, I probably could have cared less. If only I knew what tsunami of a game would be coming my way. So anyways, with my sophomore year winding down and everyone finishing their AP tests and finals, there wasn't a real need to assign homework or to study. So, as with any other loner kid in high school, I spent a lot of time on my computer, most of it on YouTube, watching videos. Not really hardcore gaming videos because, again, I didn't even know that that was a thing, but more so just music videos and other random videos I found online. In all honesty, I don't know exactly how I stumbled upon The Last of Us, but one of the first videos I remember watching was an interview where they were talking about what the game was about. Fortunately for me, this discovery was right before the game was supposed to come out, so I could watch all the preview trailers and gameplay for it. There was something about the world that was presented to me, the abandoned urban settings, the characters, and particularly for me, the grounded feeling that was given off by the gameplay and trailers. It was all just so captivating. But what really piqued my interest for the game was finding out that this game that I was really fascinated by was also made by the same developers who made my favorite trilogy. And that's what kind of set the ball rolling for me to buy this game. But that was easier said than done. The game launched on June 14th, which set the gaming world on fire. I remember watching trailers on TV promoting the game, and one time when it came on while I was watching TV with my family, I pointed it out to my parents, but they thought it was too violent for me. Yup, they were those kinds of parents. Granted, at the time I just turned 16, so I guess why they were hesitant for me to get a game like that, even in the short span of time of those commercials, looked pretty grotesque. It took some convincing, but eventually I finally went with my mom to Best Buy to purchase a copy of the game. With the game in hand and the knowledge that people praising the heck out of this game, I was super hyped to experience this myself. I'm not sure how long it took for me to play through the entire story the first time, but I eventually did finish the game. But to be honest and straight to the point, after I played it for the first time, and this might come as a shocker to everyone, especially to myself for admitting this considering that this is my favorite video game of all time, but I was not at all impressed by The Last of Us. I did not get the hype that was being placed on this game. Don't get me wrong, I knew that it was a good story, but it was just a different feel from the rest of the games that I was used to playing, even compared to Uncharted. And although I was 16, I was still too young to really notice and appreciate the certain themes that were set up within the game that so many others picked up on right away, which I'll get more into that later on in this video. What really threw me for a loop were the last 15 minutes of the game. Now, I'm kind of getting into major spoiler territory here, so tread with caution. I was confused as to what Joel told Ellie in the truck ride, where he lied to her about more people who were immune and the Fireflies stopping to find a cure. I thought I had missed something in the game, but this was due to the fact that Joel has never lied to Ellie throughout the entirety of the game. He may have dismissed her or been a little distant, but he never straight up lied to her. Even in a few interviews, director Neil Druckmann mentioned this as well. And then the ending was a little anticlimactic for me compared to the usual happy ending I was so used to playing in all video games. So once the final okay was said, the credits rolled, I was left with more questions than answers. I was left with a feeling of, that was it? I was left feeling confused, and that's when something in me started to shift. So I think the next thing I did was look up more videos and really research what this video game was all about. And not just with the story, but how this game influenced other people, and I also saw through their eyes how good this video game was and why it was so critically acclaimed. And then once I got the idea and realized things that were pointed out that I didn't realize playing through it the first time, I think that's when I decided to play it again. And the more times I played through it, the more times I realized a few things of my own, and it slowly became a part of my mind that I not only knew about, but I cared for and treasured and was proud of playing. Pretty soon I began to attribute the games to parts of my real life, and it eventually got me through a lot of difficult times, such as my first few months of college, as well as when I went through Air Force basic military training. Fast forward to today, after playing the game over 50 times since its release, and for someone who's followed it from release date onward, I have learned a lot from The Last of Us, whether intentionally or just naturally. So here are 5 reasons why The Last of Us changed my life. Number 1, it made me appreciate nature more. Now, I know what you're thinking. A video game that's played indoors taught me to be more appreciative of nature, which is outside? Like what? Now I know it sounds off, but hear me out. When the game was originally released, it was considered one of the best looking games on a last generation console, and while researching the technical side of the game, it really made me appreciate the effort and the final product that we see as the finished game now. When you realize that the developers and artists put so much work into the game to make it as realistic as possible, you start to notice some of those subtle things in real life, little by little, such as the way the sunlight shines through the branches of the trees, or how foliage and plants look growing on urban city streets and alleyways, or just around a random building, or how when the flashlight shines on a colored surface, the light will bounce back and reflect that certain color to the surrounding area. Little things like that. Number 2, it got me more interested in acting and the entertainment business. Okay, so let me just put this out there, that I have always had an interest in theater and just acting in general. I grew up watching Disney Channel and whatnot, so I always had that star mentality. But this game brought out a different side of acting that I never really considered or paid attention to up until that point. A more grounded form of acting, where things tended to be on the more serious side, where there were consequences to actions, and how you had to portray that in a certain setting and situation. Now, you may be saying, but Landon, this is a video game. What does this have to do with acting? Well, essentially, everything. At the time when this game was being developed, motion capture was still a relatively new thing, where individual people had to act out what was happening in a scene. Then animators would work their magic to transfer the motions of the real-life actors into the game. This was used in all the Uncharted's, and this is also used in Part 2 as well. So when I found out that there were real actors who not just lent their voices over to the characters, they helped shape the story into what it is today. There were real people behind these movements that the characters I saw in the game do. It was all fascinating that the animators could do that, but specifically for the narrative side of the game, an emotional game I might add, it was amazing how much acting that they had to do, how dedicated they were to their characters, and how the actors played off of each other. The chemistry between Joel and Ellie just comes off so naturally. Plus, The Last of Us has my favorite scene in any kind of entertainment medium, which I can also quote each line from this scene as well as act it out, not to brag or anything. This kind of started the ball for me wanting to explore more of acting, since I essentially could quote almost any line from the game and almost act it out as well. I even took an acting class in college for a little bit because of my interest in it. And because of me finding out about Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker, the amazing individuals who brought life into the characters of Ellie and Joel respectively, it got me more knowledgeable of the work behind the game, and it definitely got me into wanting to know more about them and the gaming industry as a whole, which leads into my number 3 reason of how The Last of Us changed my life, is that it solidified my interest in the ins and outs of gaming. Like I said before, I wanted to know more about these actors and new games and just the gaming industry as a whole, and this sudden realization came a few months before the convention was to take place that I didn't even know was a thing that had to do with everything with video games. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, E3. So in June of 2014, I watched my first ever Sony E3 press conference, and boy was I impressed. The production of the stage, how the games were shown off, the games themselves, it just blew me away. And this is also when Uncharted 4 was announced. But I'll save that story for the 5-year anniversary of the game next year. And also in 2014 of the following month, Sony and NaughtyDog broadcasted a one-night live event for The Last of Us, which led right up to the release of the remastered version of the game on the then brand new PlayStation 4. It was so interesting to watch and only fueled what I've been talking about, how the actors really could do what they did in the mocap studio in real life in front of an audience. It was an amazing experience to witness, and live music from Gustavo doesn't hurt either. Overall, the way the real life actors did their lines as well as just improved to make it more human and not just another video game still baffles me, so props to them. Number 4, it started my interest in video game soundtrack. I remember when I began to play the game, when I was done for the day and laying in my bed, I remember that instead of going to sleep, I would just have my headphones in connected to my iPod, playing the main theme of The Last of Us over and over. There was just something different to that theme compared to other gaming themes. This one was more earthy, more grounded, more of what I was feeling towards the game, where the track really brought me into the game without even playing it, where the slightest sound of leaves crunching beneath someone walking really added to the feel of the game. And from then on, I became obsessed with that soundtrack and all its collection of songs. Let's just say that I remember telling myself that if the apocalypse were to ever happen, this game would be my soundtrack for it. Hearing the soundtrack makes me want to go exploring and hiking in the woods and abandoned buildings. This soundtrack makes me want to go on the route Joel and Ellie take from Boston all the way to Salt Lake City. And especially since I kept on replaying the game over and over, I started to pick up on certain pieces where each song was played in the game, and then listening to the soundtrack made me want to play the game and go back into that world, and then playing the game made me appreciate that soundtrack even more. I could go on and on about the music, but to finish off this bullet, this soundtrack made me broaden my horizons when it comes to a gaming OST. So props to Gustavo and the entire music team for the game soundtrack. And the number 5 reason why The Last of Us changed my life was that it made me a loyal PlayStation brand fan. So this one may be a given, but I feel like after playing the game and after listening to the soundtrack and relaying all of it back into my real life and my interests, it kind of made me pay more attention not just to the games, but to the PlayStation brand in general. Their content, their games, their products, their exclusives, it really brought me into the world of gaming and fandoms and the hype for new games. And for the games I would probably have no interest in playing, such as Spider-Man, Journey, and even God of War, Sony made me hyped for it all. It's crazy how if you just submerge yourself into something, you never realize how deep you're into it until it becomes part of you as a person. And with part 2 coming in a few days from when I upload this, I absolutely cannot wait to be back into that world. And it's crazy to think that all of this has happened to me because of a video game. And there you have it, how The Last of Us changed my life forever. It has been a long journey ever since it got released 7 years ago essentially, and now part 2 is coming this Friday in a few days, and I'm just super excited and super happy that I get to dive back into the world of The Last of Us and The Infected and just get to experience another great cinematic masterpiece from Naughty Dog. And I'm just super excited, super hyped, and I can't explain more like how much video games has changed my life and how this game in particular has definitely molded me as a person. I definitely see like a few aspects of the game within myself and what I do and everything. So I'm just super happy to be part of history with the second game. And I appreciate you guys, if you watched this far, for watching the video and for actually just trying to understand where I come from and why this game means so much to me. And yeah, some may say that it's overhyped, and in a way I can get why they're like it's overrated and everything like that. But for me, I have my reasons, as you guys have already seen, as to why I love this game so much and how I will always be a fan of this game. No matter what happens, I will always be a fan of this game. And it'll be on me permanently, so I kind of have to, you know, kind of vouch for it. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate doing this. This was my first kind of video essay that I've ever done before, and I'm just super excited that I could put this together. It was definitely a lot of work, but I'm pretty sure the final outcome will be something that I'm proud with. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more hype for The Last of Us or any games or anything else that I react to on this channel. And until the next time, the wonder won't stop. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Woo!